So, hello everyone. This is the secondary episode of Car Coffee Chats with Caitlin, and we have our very first guest. Her name is Ammara. And Ammara, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. I'm Ammara, and I've known Scapes for like 6 or 7 years now, probably. I can't believe it's been that long. But we met in college at James Madison University. We were both dance majors. And we luckily only live like an hour and a half, 2 hours away from each other. So we were able to make this work. But I grew up in Harrisonburg, Virginia, also where James Madison University is. And I'm really excited to share this day on the podcast with you.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so first, again, before we get started with the actual topic, is what coffee we have today, which is Stir Coffee Cafe from Richmond, Virginia. I got the Pollinator, which is an oat milk latte with honey, lavender, cardamom, and cinnamon, available hot or iced. And I easily rate this like a 9.8 out of 10.
And I got a matcha today. I am such a matcha person over coffee. I did it to myself. This is the first time that I've said whole milk in like a year and a half. I usually get oat milk, so the matcha is great. I think I should have probably made a different decision with the milk, so I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10 today, I think. But the place is really cute. We showed up. It's like super busy here. They have like anything you could want to eat or drink.
I got an everything bagel with vegan cream cheese.
I didn't even hear you say that. It's cool I have that.
Something that Ammara has experienced in her life, but also my dad has experienced, is growing up with an immigrant parent. My dad's dad came over during World War II and from Latvia, and your father came over from Pakistan. And so this is just something I think that although you think it's kind of rare, it really isn't once you look at the numbers. And so this is immigrant parents by the numbers. So approximately 18 million U.S. children, which is 1 in 4 children under the age of 18, live with at least one immigrant parent in 2021. They accounted for 26% of the 69.7 million children under 18 in the United States, which is up from 19% in 2000 and 13% in 1990. Wow. So literally a huge jump. And this is all from the Migration Policy Institute via the U.S. Census. And
that's a lot of people.
It is. It's insane.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't heard that, like someone say that out loud before, like those numbers. That's a lot of people.
And then the second part I will actually bring up later, but the second by the numbers stat. But if you're comfortable, I know that your dad got his PhD while he was in Pakistan. And so what made him decide to come over to the States after he got his PhD?
So my dad came to the United States in the early 90s. He would kill me for not knowing the year. Early 90s. I could say that though. And I think for him, it was going to be one of the strongest places that he was going to be able to carry out his residency. You know, the United States, I think for a lot of people signifies something of like a new world, a new life, and just looking to create family and looking to create yourself, like really building yourself up, and is like the perfect place to do that for a lot of immigrant families, and is feels like a really special place to be. So I think for him that was a big reason why he came here. It was actually his first time traveling. It was his first flight.
Oh my gosh.
Like it was his first everything, which I actually didn't know until not that long ago, but he had never gone out of the country or been on an airplane. And I think it was him and his 2 friends that like booked their first flight together. And they all sat next to each other in a row to the United States of America. And they were landing in New York City. And he said they were terrified. They were so scared. Like, you know, I mean, you know, your first time on a plane. So, yeah, I think he has told me that it was like one of the scariest things that he's ever done, but it ended up being the best thing that he's ever done.
Aw, that's so cute.
Isn't that crazy? Oh. Yeah. So it was like him and his two friends, and they were the same. They were coming to do their residency. They all started working in New York City and New Jersey, and they were meeting one of their friends that was older than them in New York City. So I think they were all living together in a small apartment to do their residency together.
That's so cute. So he did his whole entire PhD, but then he came over for his residency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aw. That's so cute. Oh,
I know. Especially because you know my dad.
Yeah,
like, you can picture him.
I was about to say, to anyone who hasn't met Ammara's dad, he is, like, one of the sweetest humans I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like, he is, like, a teddy bear.
Yeah, he's definitely, like, teddy bear energy. He's super, super sweet, like you said. He's really funny. Like, he's... But, like, funny in, like, a dad odd way, but maybe even taking it to a different level. Like, he's just like one of the best people. You know, he would do anything for you. So yeah, I can also say that because he's my dad, but he's a very good person. So.
He is. I would literally trust my life with him. Besides the fact that he's a doctor, I would trust my life with him.
Another good reason.
And then, so what are... This next question, I know that you said you wanted to have a little disclaimer of your own, but what are some stigmas that you would like to demystify or change about growing up with a parent who immigrated into the U.S.?
Yeah, so I did want to have like a little disclaimer that this is just everything we're talking about today regarding to like my dad being an immigrant to the United States, having an immigrant parent, like it's just my experience, and so not to say that just because you have an immigrant parent that this is your experience. Could you ask the question one more time?
Yeah, totally.
My brain was on the disclaimer.
What are stigmas that you would like to demystify or change about having grown up with a parent who immigrated from the United States? Like, what's something that you feel like is either a stereotype or is very, like, hard hit on when it comes to having a parent from, like, outside of the U.S.?
So, I would say a big part of it is the grades thing.
Yeah.
A big part of it is that, and I know that could probably vary from family to family. It was definitely, and we'll probably get to this later, like a big part of my childhood to be the best at anything that I did. And I think that comes from some of the cultures of my dad's side of the family. But, I was fortunate enough to be in a family where he, like, doing my best was not the top of whatever it was, like, that was okay.
Yeah.
And that as long as I kept practicing and putting my best foot forward, like, it would be okay. So I think that that's, like, one big thing in terms of, like, my experience with an immigrant parent. Something else that I do think, well, I will say a lot of, like, the stigmas or stereotypes that there are out there, I feel like are low-key true. It might not be to the extreme that people think always.
Or
but,
displayed in media.
Yeah, but, like, I feel like I've definitely, like, what's in the media or what people talk about, I have experienced in different ways on different levels. So I don't even know if I can answer that question. Maybe we can loop back to that if something comes to me. But, like, yeah, most of the things are real.
Yeah, and something to bring up with what you said was something that I found surprising when I was researching was it's almost 50-50 with students who earn mostly A's. It's 51% of someone with an immigrant parent versus 49%. So literally almost 50-50.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is something that is a big stereotype. At least also I can speak from at least my father's experience with his dad. All of them went to UVA, Virginia Tech, or William and Mary, which
big
like
schools.
if you know Virginia
big schools,
they are big, difficult schools to get into.
Yeah.
But he always, it's so interesting to see because while he may have pushed to do their best academically. He always just wanted them to, like, be happy with what they were doing.
Totally.
And, like, you can totally see that now. Like, I am literally currently unemployed, and my granddaddy, I'll talk to him about being so stressed about being unemployed, and he's like, as long as you're happy with your choice. Like, because that's definitely the biggest thing. Like, literally, my Uncle Tommy's out in California being a stay-at-home dad right now, but my granddaddy just sees how happy he is doing that, and he's like, okay.
Absolutely. I think, like, that's kind of how it was in my family. And I do know that my dad did come from a very specific background where he has 2 brothers and 1 sister. And so when they were all of age to decide what they were going to do, it was like the oldest will be in engineering, the second oldest will be the doctor. Like, it was like that for him. And I think also, my mom's not an immigrant. Yeah. So, you know, I feel like that's also a big part of it in their relationship and communication and how I turned out. But, he just wanted me to be happy at the end of the day. And when I talk to his family now, like I said, we both majored in dance. Yeah. And Scapes also. Should I call you Scapes?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Sorry, we called her Scapes in college. Scapes also had a different major, but I just majored in dance, and that was something I was really nervous about, because when I came into college, I was majoring in 2 different things. Kind of felt like I had to. I felt like I even had to go on a medical pathway because my dad did, and my mom's a nurse, so it just felt like the right thing to do, and I thought I'd be good at it, but it wasn't what I was, like, the most passionate in doing in school. And so when I told them I was just going to major in dance, it was a really hard conversation, and of course they were disappointed in the fact of maybe, like, one day they just want me to be secure, and they weren't sure about the dance route, but they were supportive in the fact that what I was happy doing and, like, putting my mind to. And so when I talk to my dad's side of the family or his friends that we see at conferences and stuff, or, like, school reunions of his, like, they're all sometimes I think that they'll be, like, judgmental in a way of, like, oh, she is not in the sciences or in engineering or mathematics or whatever, because honestly so many of their kids are, but like, they think what I do is so cool, and they like see my passion.
It's also interesting. I feel like it's also a generational difference, if I'm being honest, because I had this conversation with my dad was majorly that, especially when it comes to location, because, you know, I want to work in marketing out in LA. But I really realized that I personally would rather be happy with where I was living and working paycheck to paycheck rather than being financially secure and being miserable with where I was.
Absolutely.
And so that's just something that I think is also very different generationally, because my dad just straight up looked at me and was like, well, that's something we disagree on. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And so it's something that I notice is also generational difference. It's like the financial security is, I feel like, our generation, if I had to make a general statement, is more risk is better than reward.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
That I've noticed.
Yeah.
And and then so I guess this kind of goes into, because you talked about going to these conferences and everything, what are some cultural differences you noticed growing up? So, for example, an example I wrote down for her in my notes is something that is very big in my family and in Latvian culture is sauerkraut. And so whenever people came over to my dad's house growing up, it always smelled like sauerkraut, because it was just such a big staple in Latvian cuisine. And so my granddaddy, even if he was in the States, always wanted it. So on every Thanksgiving, it's at least guaranteed that it has to be on your table. Yeah. And which we could literally go into later. Another thing was, like, Thanksgiving was just a really big thing for him, because that was actually his very first meal in the United States. But,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So literally they were still on the ship coming over from Europe during World War II, and since it was a holiday, they weren't allowed to get off the ship at Ellis Island.
Oh my gosh.
But all these people, I don't know what area they were. I want to say they were nurses.
Uh-huh.
They came on the ship and they actually brought like a Thanksgiving meal to everyone so that they had their very first Thanksgiving, even though it was
special.
I know,
like memory. The next time I'm up there, I'm gonna have to remember to look up your family because they have a database at the museum there at Ellis Island where like you can look up your family and see what time people came in. And
I'll have to give you
reports.
like the Latvian spelling of it, but
yeah, that'll make a difference. But wow, that's so cool, especially like Thanksgiving of all holidays. Of, like all like it's gonna be your first meal in the United States. That's like such a staple. Here. So, wow. Anyways, the question,
like,
we were
what was your like cultural differences you noticed that were maybe different from like your
families?
Your families versus like your friends' families and everything.
I mean, so many different things. Like, so when I was younger, I would say when I was younger, I had a little bit more of a mixture of the cultures going on in my family. Of course, the language was different. So I noticed very quickly that not everyone's family spoke two different languages in the household. And at the very beginning of my childhood, we were speaking two different languages, English and Urdu, which is what my dad speaks. There's a whole nother story I can get into of like why I don't speak Urdu. But that doesn't apply to this question. So speaking two different languages in the house, the way people dress, I was like kind of confused how I had all of this like traditional Pakistani clothing in my closet, and then that wasn't what I wore to school. Like that wasn't what other people wore to school. I also grew up in like a really rural area, so it wasn't like I was surrounded by a lot of,
like, you weren't in a big city.
Yeah, I wasn't in a big city.
Or Orlando or Miami. Or
exactly. Where that would be around more. So I would say the language, the clothes, the food. Like, so our house, like my friends would talk about when they'd come over that it always smelled like Indian food is what they would say. And it was like Pakistani food that my parents were cooking all the time, which both my parents are so good at cooking, which is funny. Like my mom's almost better than my dad sometimes. Maybe she's just like a really good cook and has adopted some things. But yeah, so people would always talk about the way the house smelled, and it always smelled like butter chicken most of the time, which people would like love coming over for specifically. There was this one, I can't remember what it was called. It was like an event we did in my elementary school where like families could sign up if they were, they could like sign up for a specific like culture to talk about. And so like my family would talk about my dad being from Pakistan, and we would bring like clothes and pictures of his family and like set up a whole table. And so like I was like, okay, my friends aren't doing this. Like there's only a few families in my elementary school that are doing this and talking about their culture. Let's see. I definitely, when I got older, boys was a big thing, was a difficult thing. For both me and my family. I, you know, everyone starts kind of like dating and hanging out with boys, and that varies from family to family for sure. But I feel like it's like around middle school and high school, there becomes an interest in, you're allowed to do some things, but not others. But definitely from my dad's point of view, it was like, you will not date someone until you're getting married to them kind of vibe. And for me, that seemed like an eternity away when I was in high school. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be 30 and I'm never going to be allowed to date anybody. I mean, like, I couldn't sit on the couch next to males.
Oh, okay.
Like, that was a really big thing. That I could have potentially had like romantic interest in. Like, that was like a no. I think another big thing that goes along with that is I knew that my dad was supposed to have an arranged marriage. Again, another story we can come back to, but he was supposed to. And so it was like a question I always felt uncomfortable asking, because I was like, if I ask this, it will like open the door to being like, you will do this. And I wasn't being, everyone that was around me wasn't in that culture. So the arranged marriage part was definitely a nerve-wracking piece for me. And I think the last thing, there was one more thing I wanted to touch on. We talked about Language. Food. Relationships. It will come back to me. I think it'll come back to me.
Possibly religion? Because I know Catholicism was, like, really big with my grandfather.
I mean, sorry if I just elbowed you. I think yes, in some ways with religion, like, I just didn't really understand my dad's religion. But I also just didn't understand religion because I, like, went to a preschool it was like a Christian preschool. And then...
Same with my brother. But then they tried to hold me back. And so then my parents were like, no, we'll go to the Goddard up the street.
Yeah. I went to a Christian preschool and then, like... But I was Muslim. And... It was honestly just really confusing, and we didn't necessarily talk about culture in my household, which I think was a huge part of, like, something my dad regrets, and something looking back, like, I really wish I had and, like, regret wanting to be a part of more. So I didn't fully, like, understand the religion piece. I will tell a funny story, I guess, along with the food. I wasn't allowed to eat certain foods, and I didn't know why. Okay. So I wasn't allowed to eat pork, which everyone eats pork around here.
I remember my dad, though, one time literally got, like, turkey bacon for you. Because
he made me, like, 20 pieces of turkey bacon that one morning because he knew. It was so kind. Which, you know, I understand that some people, like, don't realize.
But now I'm really big on turkey sausage, personally.
Yes. I know some people don't realize. And so, as I've gotten older, like... If that's what's there, I don't want to be disrespectful to who's serving me, and I'll eat it. But, like, when I was a young kid, I was told I wasn't supposed to have, like, ham or pork. And I didn't understand that. Like, it was just like, you just don't do this. And in kindergarten, I think I came home and was like, Dad, I, like, learned this new Dr. Seuss song, and, like, I had, like, green eggs and ham. And I didn't realize that was pork. Or when they'd have, like, pepperoni pizza at school or something. Yeah. Like, it's just, like, people weren't aware of that. That there was, you know, that could be happening with some of the students maybe. And so, that was an issue.
Yeah. I can totally see that.
Yeah.
I can totally see that. Especially with, like you said, pork is such, I feel like, pork and ham specifically, I feel like are such big things.
Yeah.
In United States culture, but also in, when I went over to France in high school, I feel like every other meal I had, it was either beef or pork.
Yeah.
And so I feel it's, like, so crazy how, like, just set it is in certain cultures. And so, versus, like, other cultures, it's, like, a very big no-no.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then, so, I'm trying to read this over while also continuing the conversation.
You're fine. I will say, like, another thing with clothing is, like, there were certain things I wasn't allowed to wear. Like, and things that I didn't understand I wasn't allowed to wear. Like, I wasn't allowed to wear dresses above the knee. And I mean, like, right at the knee. Like, I wasn't allowed to wear that, which everyone in school wore, like, short little skirts. And I'm talking, like, second grade. But, like, I was like, what?
Once you're in middle school, though, it does get very difficult because I remember in cotillion, we weren't allowed to wear dresses above our knee.
Yeah.
And it was so difficult, especially because, like, in middle school, I was at the full height of 5'8".
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like I was a stick because I was dancing, like, 26 hours a week.
Yeah.
So, although I was 5'8", I was this stick, so I had to get these smaller sizes.
Yeah.
And so it's, like, at the mid-thigh or something, and they're like, nope.
Not gonna
work.
Can't
do cotillion.
Yeah. We're back with a different angle.
We're back with a different angle, and it's upside down. So in post, it's not going to be upside down, but it's currently upside down.
This is funny.
Okay, so what were we even talking about before?
We were talking about skirt length.
Oh, okay.
Which I probably was an issue.
The camera got too hot for that. That's why.
The camera got too hot. I understand it's a hot topic. Skirt length was probably an issue in many families for young women, but I think for my dad it was specifically related to culture of, like, that will not be okay. Yeah.
Something else that I wanted to touch on, which I did not write down in the thing, but you inspired me while you were talking about your dad, is visiting
Oh,
Pakistan
yeah.
after.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, at least for my grandfather, sorry, it's like,
It's saying things upside down.
yeah. Trying to read upside down is very difficult. There we go. Okay. So something that I noticed is, like, at least with my grandfather, he only went back and visited Latvia once.
Yeah.
But does your dad visit, like, a lot to Pakistan, especially since he has friends that he grew up with there and everything?
I would say no. It's so far away.
It is.
And I know it's a lot of money to travel there. He has gone back multiple times, multiple times since he's been here, but in the grand scheme of, like, seeing everyone, I would say no. He did go back when I love how I learned that I apparently need to have a fan on this camera when it is above 50 degrees outside. That is so great. Besides the point. And it's cloudy outside
It
today.
is cloudy.
It's, like, literally so dark
But
and
also
gloomy.
it is, like, pushed up against my window, so it's probably causing a lot of heat.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's a good way to start.
And so what we were talking about before...
My dad visiting Pakistan.
Yes, your dad visiting Pakistan.
So I don't think that he has visited as much as he would like to. I think I was saying that he definitely went when his father passed away when I was really young. I think I was like 5. And he's gone for he's gone for a wedding. He's gone for a second family wedding. Maybe once or twice besides that. But in, like, since the early 90s to now, that's a really long time to have only gone like 4 or 5 times. I will say that his dad did come over and meet me when I was a newborn. So I did get to meet him, even though I don't remember him. And his older brother is an engineer on tankers, like oil ships.
Aww.
So when his older brother has stopped in different, like, large cities, we'll go see him, or he'll
cool.
somehow find a way to see us. So we've seen him in Texas. We've seen him, like, if he's stopped in Washington, D.C., he'll, like, come to our house. And so I've been able to be around him, but I've never met his younger brother or his sister before. But good news, I think in 1 year I'll be in Pakistan, like, right now.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so my dad and I were talking about going on a trip there. He's never taken, like, any of my I have a little sister. He's never taken my little sister or I or my mom. It's kind of, like, always been a question about, like, what we have going on in our lives and safety and stuff. But I would love to go, so I'm going to go with him, I think, the next January. Yeah. So... we'll have to do, like, a part 2.
I know, we will. I'll have to
tell you how my trip goes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's, like, I'm so excited about visiting Latvia. Even though I'm not technically my grandfather's child, I'm his grandchild, but I'm so excited.
It still counts.
Yeah.
That's really exciting, especially, like, I'm assuming in the month that you're going, it's going to be beautiful.
Oh my gosh, it's actually, like, one of the most important months to visit Latvia, because so in Latvian culture, and when I told my granddad about this, he was so excited.
That you were going that month?
Yeah, so in Latvian culture, the summer solstice is huge. There's 2 names for it, and let me look it up before I swap the 2.
What month are you going in? May?
I'm going at the end of June.
I should have known when the summer solstice is.
Like, we are going from the 18th to the 26th, I think. And when I say we, my brother and I want to say Lagos, but that is literally from Marvel. Latvia. Okay. So, summer solstice in Latvia is one of the biggest holidays in the country. It's Johnny and Ligo. One is Ligo is the night of June 23rd to the 24th, in harmony with the summer solstice, and Johnny is the whole entire day
of the 24th, like the next day. Probably.
Johnny, I want to say it's... This is where I get really confused. But one is Johnny and one is Lego.
Yeah.
And basically, like, you're supposed to stay up, like, all night. And, like, even there's supposed to be campfires, and it's a really big thing where you're apparently supposed to jump over the fire and everything.
Oh my God, you gotta do it.
I know, my brother, I literally planned to wear, because everyone said, like, on these forums, they were like, if you are afraid of being with random people, then do it in the city, like in Riga. Mm-hmm. But if you feel like you can be with random people, like, go to the countryside. So the way it lines up is my brother and I will be in Riga on the actual solstice, so on the 21st. But
awesome.
On the days that they celebrate it, we're going to be over in the countryside.
Wow.
So, like, I'm so
excited there needs to be a really great episode with your brother about this trip.
I know. I may have to do, like, a vlog where, because we're renting a car,
mm-hmm.
so I may just have to do a vlog where I have my own little mini mic and I'm talking the whole entire time through it. It's like, and that's the episode for that week. But
that would be great.
I know. I'm so excited for it. But that's exciting that you get to go too.
Yeah, I'm really excited to go. And a lot of, like, my dad's friends that he came to the United States with or have come, like, either before him or after him still live in the United States. Oh. So they're kind of spread out around the country. And they do these school reunions, honestly, like, every 5 years. So he's been able to go to different parts of the United States to see his classmates and see all of their success. They're all doctors in different places. So, yeah, I'm excited.
That is exciting.
Now we gotta book it, though, because I'm like, it's not real if it's not booked. So
yeah. That's how I felt about Latvia.
I've only done international travel once, like, with a group of people.
Me too. I've only done it through my high school.
Same.
So I was like, and that was all taken care of through an outside company.
Yeah.
But it's like, and also, admittedly, the layover that we had for high school, it was still in the States. It wasn't in a different country.
That's how mine was. We went from, like, Washington, D.C. to New York City to
Same.
London.
We did Richmond to Detroit, Michigan, and then Detroit,
like,
Michigan to...
Went backwards.
Yeah, to Paris.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
Long flight.
It was an 8-hour flight.
Dang.
I mean, do you have any other comments about growing up?
Well, I can tell tons of stories. I have lots of stories. I will say, I'll talk about my parents' journey a little bit. Like, so my dad came to the United States to do his residency, and let's see, like I said, he started in New York City, and then he ended up in Edison, New Jersey, and he met my mom. They were working at the same hospital. She's a nurse and he's a doctor. And people, like, said that they should date and they should, like, get together.
Sorry, I'm gonna turn my...
You're fine.
Continue talking. I'm gonna turn my...
Hell yeah. That's good.
Because I see the temperature thing on.
It's, like, getting hot again, guys.
It's like...
Please give me air. What was I saying? Oh, so my dad was in New Jersey and he met my mom, and people kept telling them, like, even though they were really close friends, that they should start dating. And I think people called them, like, Ricky and Lucy from I Love Lucy, like, their relationship vibes. And so they started dating. Basically, at some point, my dad's family called him and they were like, we found someone for your arranged marriage. You need to come back to Pakistan. And he didn't know what to do and explained it all to my mom, and he went back to Pakistan. But he went back to tell his family that he couldn't do that. Like, he was like, I met someone in the United States and that's who I want to marry, that's who I love. And again, like, he just, like, another example of, like, his family just being a really good family. They said that would be fine as long as she converted to being Muslim, like, and that they could marry each other, which, like, that wasn't, like, a big deal for my mom. And so that's how they ended up being married, even though they weren't supposed to at first. Because my dad was supposed to get arranged marriage, which is like crazy to think about, because it's just like not the culture we're surrounded by ever here. For the most part, it's specifically in like where I grew up. Like there was no other families that were like going through a similar circumstance. And so, yeah, I used to think like that might be a thing for me, and I'm blessed that I have a family that is okay with that not being a thing for me. They definitely had to jump through some hoops though to get married and like establish where he was going to practice. I think they had to do a lot of like proving that they were actually in love and like actually a couple, because he was from a different country, and yeah, they had to jump through hoops. So like I think when he was able to practice and they got married, I don't know how this works, but like they were given like only like 10 places that they could move to in the United States, like anywhere. They were like, these are the 10 places that you're allowed to move to.
Like his practice said that, or the
I think a mix of both.
Okay.
Like somehow it was like all connected, and like this is where you can practice, and like this is where you're allowed to be living at.
Wow.
And they ended up in Arizona in the middle of nowhere. Like there was one stoplight in this town. Like it was like crazy. So yeah, they kind of like went through that experience to just get married, which I think is also another big thing. Like when I was a kid and hearing that story, I was like, that's not normal. Like, you know, it was kind of a confusing thing for me. I will say the reason why I didn't learn Urdu, and there's like a whole, again, this is just like my personal experience that I was having, but I used to go to the mosque with my dad on Saturdays, and this is something I was going to say earlier that I forgot. Seeing that women and men were separated in a lot of things in his culture. And so, like, we would go to the mosque, and, like, if I was with him by myself, he would go pray with the men, and then I didn't know anybody.
Oh, yeah,
and I would just, like,
scary as a kid.
just go with the women, and I would just, like, copy what they did. And I think in classes, like, boys and girls were separated. Classes as in, like, they just had, I mean, I think in, like, at church they have, like...
Yeah, we have, like, Sunday school.
Yeah, Sunday school. So, like, at the mosque, we would, like, take, like, classes, Urdu classes and stuff, and talk about prayer. And I think we were separated there, too. But there's, like, you know, there's a lot of, like, rituals, too, like, cleaning yourself and cleansing your body before praying, and... I didn't know anyone, so I would just follow people. So it was kind of just like an intense situation for my dad too, I'm sure, to like send me off and be like, you're just gonna stay and follow what everyone's doing, and then I'll see you afterwards. And then when I was in school, I think that at that specific mosque, I was one of the only kids that had a parent that like was an immigrant, and then like was like a white American from New Jersey, and so very different. And so I was bullied for that, and so the mosque ended up turning into something that like that specific experience. It was a negative experience. So like I would come to, and this just has to do with the kids that were there, you know, nothing to do with the culture whatsoever, but just like the kids that were there would like scribble out anything that my name was in and stuff. And so like I just started to explain to my dad, like, of course I don't want to go there, you know. I'm like having a bad experience, and so he dropped it immediately, which I was thankful for then. Like he didn't force that on me, but looking back, like I'm like, oh, if all the things that I could have done if I had like persevered through that, figured out a way to do that, and like know a second language and like know more about my culture, because then after that I think my dad just like didn't want to pressure anything. So I would say that's like a big reason why I have probably struggled in terms of like my adult life. If I'm like, who am I? I'm like in between two different cultures. I don't understand what either of them are really. I understand more of like my mom's culture than my dad's. I feel like I'm getting back into a place where I like want to know more about my dad's culture. Hence like going to Pakistan and like starting to immerse myself a bit more.
Okay, well, this is what Ammara gets for being the very first guest.
I love it.
she gets to see all of the craziness, I guess, that I really didn't prep for, but I'll be better next time, I guess.
Well, this is just like such like real and intense work. I have like never been on a podcast before, so I could like only imagine, but like now seeing everything, like it's, you know, it's really incredible that you're doing this. So
It's a lot of fun. It is a lot
yeah,
of fun.
we've been talking about in our camera breaks, like when it gets overheated, like this has been so great to just talk and also about like things I feel like we wouldn't just normally talk about too.
But also I feel like, so the whole reason I started this podcast was because I feel like, at least in our friend group and then in my other friend groups, and even in my family, I get into these chats about like life and certain scenarios, whether it's literally in the car or over a cup of coffee, which is the whole reason why I started this like car coffee chats.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it gives opportunity, especially if you, like, we go into random tangents about different things, but I feel like I have so many friends that have very specific experiences, like you, or like a future episode that I plan on having is the twins.
Yeah.
Just an experience of being a twin. Like these very specific experiences that you don't really get to shed light into unless you start that conversation.
Yeah.
And like is something that I just find so intriguing about all of my friends, is that all of them have these different experiences, but also at the same time can be shared experiences.
Yeah.
Like, for example, what I have in common with this is my dad. My dad's dad coming over as an immigrant. And so that's just something that I thought would be a great topic to discuss with you, which is the whole reason why I asked you for this episode specifically. But just to summarize it all, thank you again for coming on.
Of course.
Of course, again, I'm sorry about all of the craziness that occurred due to it. But I just had a lot of fun discussing everything.
I had a lot of fun discussing everything too, and it's kind of nice, like, you know, people don't really ask me like this question. I like don't talk about it often, besides like maybe telling a story or two. So it was really nice to like kind of even just reflect for myself, like just to like hear what I've said, and I'm excited to kind of like listen to this back and process on this as well in terms of like my own experience. But it's been really nice, and thank you for like creating such like a comfortable, like caring environment too to like talk about something like this too. So yeah, I'm like glad that I got to share some of my experience for people to hear again. It's just my experience. And I know that it was like a quick and dirty, like my dad's life and my life in 45 minutes kind of vibe. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And I will also, like, if people want to see you and see what your life is like more in depth, I will like tag your social below.
Totally.
And, Ammara is a very open and welcoming person. If you have any questions or relate to her story at all, I'm sure that her DMs are open.
They are. Yeah, please reach out. I would be happy to start conversation and chat or become friends. So, yeah.
But again, thank you again. I don't want to make you late for the whole entire reason you were in Richmond in the first place, but
that's okay. This is like it turned into a great day of being in Richmond for dance and podcast and dinner.
Yeah, possibly.
Food. Keyword food.
Keyword food. Okay. But, yeah.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Like, subscribe. Give a good rating if you liked it. And I will be back again next week. Unsure what the topic will be next week, but, yeah.
We will see.